Already daily trading recap for Wednesday, the 9th of March, 2022. Getting after it again today, testing some more different little dip and rip strategies today on some very nice movers that I really have not seen in a long time that were non-sector specific, of course, from the oil and gas craziness that we're still kind of in the remnants of as of right now. But yeah, testing them with very small size, and they didn't really come to fruition of what I would have been pushing harder size on had they started to reach specific points, but we'll get into those on the individual tickers themselves. But again, coming into today with futures in mind, looking to trade on the SPY itself, not doing the 15 to 30 minute window from the market open as I have been the past 2 or 3 weeks ago. But instead of today, looking for first minute, that 9:30 minute candle, looking for the volatility within that, and sure enough, got some nice opportunity there right away. And it's just so funny that in playing off of that and the data I've collected off of that coming into today and actually putting it to the test, that like just immediately how I push that button and the profit target is just filled instantaneously nearly after that. It's just like, all I have to do is push this money and my account goes green. This game is so easy. So yeah, that was a fun encounter to start off the day with that little volatility spread trade right at the open, the market bell there. We are minutes still before the close here. Let's just do some market dollar volume for reference for me. Nasdaq $214 billion volume on the day. NYSE $370 billion volume. OTC's $2.4 billion volume. I expected to change with the volume coming in as of right now and after the close here. But yeah, let's get into the trades. I'll start off with DWAC, still my paper short. Thought it was looking going to be a little bit squeezy, but sure enough, that was just some early shorts covering their position, holding that below that $80 level. Still in my paper short here from last week Friday. I think I started in on that one. So with just a few lingering shares, completely experimental, educational trade. I think if it does start to break to the upside of that $80 level, I would see a cover for this short position, those last few shares in store. I think I was talking about this or alluding to this the other previous days, talking about DWAC specifically of, it's not like this was just a panic. And it's not like there's going to be any sign of a first green day because of the volume itself, showing that it's just kind of selling off and following the market a little bit more closely now. But I can certainly see it holding this level, maybe just getting a little bit more sideways before it has any more attempt to try and regain $100 anytime soon. But kind of looked at with the timing of how this short ended up occurring, but a very nice opportunity and education nonetheless on DWAC there. Not that one. Let's go to DRCT now. Very nice trade that Chris had an awesome smack on this one today. American Advertising Company, about a 3 million floater. They just uplisted in IPO'd in February. They're running pretty low on cash, but they do also have a few warrants out there from that IPO in February, and I did not find any specific news catalyst through my scans here for today's run-up, but they did have a news article come out at 10 o'clock here Eastern Time. Pigeon Forge Department of Tourism re-ups direct digital holdings Orange 142 for digital media services in new 5-year agreement. So for the type of volume and the type of percentage points that this thing was pushing, I don't believe that was the specific news catalyst to result as of that news. I think I worded that correctly. So maybe some pumpage going on there. But coming in today, just looking at it as a first green day, not really caring about for that type of dip and rip trade. I want to say that putting in all this background research and dilution efforts into, is there just going to be major overhead slamming into these things? And it's always a toss-up at times of if there is dilution there, is it actually going to act upon itself within the first 15 minutes of market open? Is it going to wait 2 days until it pumps 200 more %? So many different factors that way that, I wish we just had a webcam in on the people that have the shares of when they're pushing the button or when that type of overhead starts to come in on these plays. But still playing the odds, playing obvious risk-reward opportunities there as they approach themselves or approve themselves. I started in with a little dip and rip attempt very early on. I did the same thing on SBFM, but starting in with extremely small size. If they, similar to the oil and gas sector plays, just kind of started to dip and rip very quickly on, not really allowing a 15-minute or 10-minute window from that bell to draw themselves out, attracting a few more shorts and then just squeeze them, rip them to new highs. But if we just get in this crazy volatile market that the move happens within 5-6 minutes from market open, then I would have already been prepared and kind of stepped in the way of that and been sitting pretty and been ready to add on to that position. had that move occurred, but sure enough, it didn't. So I started in with 20 shares. I think it was 10, and then within a few seconds later, adding another 10 as I thought I was seeing some levels hold here. But sure enough, it did tank beyond this little low, so cut for a little 2.6% loss on those 20 shares. Very small size on that one, but yeah, like I was alluding to, had it ripped closer to view out there or started testing, breaking this little regional high of 218, I would have definitely seen myself adding larger size on in the frame of hundreds of shares as the trade was slowly confirming itself and looking for plays above 2.5 there, potentially as a minimum first target for profit there. But sure enough, even after this little sell-off here off of that first minute, did find a bounce at 940, becoming the bottom there, and continuing to put in higher lows. I got to figure out when. Regardless of, it did actually end up reclaiming the VWAP, kind of touching off there, pulling back, but still holding these levels and clinging to that underside of VWAP. Then finally gets the big push and shove above 2.4, pulls back again to VWAP, but chugga volume comes in. This thing goes all the way to 365, pretty insane. And then kind of double top ranges here, and then now sells off back down under 2.6 before the close. Interesting price action on that one. And even Tim Gertani, looking at him in the chat of how he was playing this one and having an afternoon type of trade on this one, getting in 2:30ish time frame, I want to say 1:30ish. I think in this range here that he was starting in, on whether or not he was playing it in the morning session, but still long within this point as it's holding this range here beyond 305 and 265 within there. Finally gets that move to 3.4ish range here now, fooling around up here again, but sure enough selling off, and I think he had to leave or exit the chat. So would have been interesting to see how he would have played that one if he had a stop in anywhere to take profits or was taking profits in this range at these failures to just push higher. This would have been a key area, I think, that would have gotten me out had I had a position like that for the afternoon session on this one. But that was DRCT. Getting into SBFM now. SBFM, crazy percentage mover coming into today. I think this was the biggest percentage mover. I don't know if it was the biggest dollar volume on the mover today. $275 million volume we're showing at the end of the day here. 240,000 trades. Again, similar, no news catalyst I found specifically for this one, but it is a Canadian pharmaceutical company, 2 to 4-ish million float, similar to DRCT. Some uplisting warrants that it's got, but nothing crazy, insane for obvious dilution coming in on this one. With these insane parabolic movers in pre-market, it's just hard to judge and say that it's going to go, like it still has the potential during market hours to do the same thing. It's obviously the sentiment is there that this thing can do it, so it could potentially have a better chance than another stock that hasn't done that crazy of a move as compared to that one to do it in market hours versus that one. But even at that of trying to then identify levels and say, okay, now I want to risk this one. I want to risk this low. Now we get to this VWAP. We're failing off of VWAP there. So many different variables and perspectives that can come into these charts. And then adding on top of that of, okay, now the risk has to really be defined off of that and the position sizing off of that because of then how much more volatile it becomes. So even saying, if we're trading around this range here, 438, and say, okay, this looks like an obvious technical level here. That's almost 10% move of trading it there of what would normally be, okay, let's risk a 5% move there, or let's risk, 2%, whatever that moves that it starts to come or trend to that low region, and then saying, okay, obvious risk level here, I'm just going to risk that for my long and look to the play to VWAP and maybe take off some shares, or if we get the acceleration beyond that, that would be fantastic. But then even with these insane, crazy parabolic movers, it's almost like opportunity is aplenty, but the risk then has to be managed more accordingly to that. So that's a growing factor with this and learning experience with these all the same. And then, like I alluded to in the introduction, I was taking a little bit different of approach with this dip and rip style of trade, similar to how I did DRCT of just starting in with extremely small size, knowing that full size position, I would definitely be willing to take 200 shares minimum, 300, 400 shares for a size on a full dip and rip trade to see this thing find a level, find a base, maybe be just very range bound, but respecting lows and continuing to put in higher lows there, looking for the play to potentially take it off to at VWAP, around VWAP, but looking ultimately for a nice acceleration beyond there in that dip and rip time frame, but starting in on this thing in that first minute candle, as I thought we were getting some volume come in, this was the biggest percentage mover, getting a lot of eyeballs on it as the oil sector plays weren't really producing anything crazy today. I'll pull up IMPP a little bit later here. CEI offered a little bit as well, but in that of saying, hey, I think this is going to happen, so I want to play off of that, and I'm respecting obvious risk-reward levels there, and especially with my very small size. I thought it was very opportune for me and important for me to be in them as early as I was. So taking 3 in and outs here within the first 15 minutes, starting in with that first minute candle, 10 shares, again, another 10 shares as it's kind of holding this level, another 10 as it's still respecting that initial open candle low, just above $4 level there. As we're getting a perk above, getting to 4.6, trying to get filled, trying to screw around with my position size, take off half, maybe around that 4.6, but sure enough, get filled under 4.5 for a little scalpy there. But like, gosh, yeah, I want to be taking more. That's with that specific trade, I should have been scaling in more as it's confirming itself. And if it was actually starting to press to new highs even above this candle, then I would have felt absolutely stupid of, okay, that's the reason why I was taking so incredibly small size, because I was waiting for actual confirmation to come in to take larger size. So why would I be scaling out as it's rejecting here? And now that I'm thinking about it, I was scaling out because it was rejecting at that point. But in that, and then it finally, in that second candle, after that initial peak, we get the dump below this candle here, I think whatever my average was, so getting filled pretty much at the bottom there. But then kind of coming back to the scene, getting off of the sidelines again, saying, it shook me out, but that doesn't mean that's the end of the chart. I want to start back in again. I think it's gapping up. I think it could have the opportunity to do that. It's still respecting that $4 low. Let's get back in again, 10 shares. As it was holding here once again, I thought, okay, I think it is holding. What I'm seeing right now, it says it's holding, and sure enough, it starts to test lower. And it's now breaking to new lows and saying, okay, maybe this is a fake out. If we, I don't want to make that a habit whatsoever that if, don't sell into the weakness, right? Or the reverse of that if it's short. But yeah, that was a little role I was playing because it was such a small position size. Like, let's just be curious about this. So if this is a fake out. If it's starting to go more, okay, we'll cut it. And that's eventually what happened with this exit here on that second trade. That was just, another educational little experience of what I lost in total on this one today of $12. I will gladly take that again and again, just to be able to get that experience and understand, okay, what I was seeing was not necessarily correct for the reason for the entries. I think I was playing more off of the candles themselves and just the feeling and emotion of it versus the actual tape or the actual level 2 showing to me or proving to me that anything to the upside was actually occurring there, or that there was just a non-debatable reason for me to be in it at these specific points here. But as getting it develop a little bit more time-wise, starts to hold that level again, starts to put in some higher lows, testing those previous ranges of those candles. I get it again with another 20 shares, and I got all that breakdown here like you saw for those specific trades. But then, yeah, had another move, tried to get above $4, but just got slammed back under. So exiting off of that one. But that really was not the end sentiment. It had another little leg after that one, but then ultimately got slammed for the morning session on any longs trying to play to that specific trade and just dumping this thing to coming all the way down under 3.2 for whatever time frame that was trading around there. Then having a little perk, eventually coming back to VWAP just before the lunch session, but then just kind of being a VWAP clinger, going sideways range bound for the rest of the day. Lots of opportunity and volatility for how crazy the initial pre-market move was, but yeah, just of what was tradable, there's obviously somebody who was making money off of it, or you could try to identify your spots of, oh, look at the little double top here. Oh, I knew this was going to be a volume little dip bottom low and sell perfectly at VWAP here. You can identify 1,000 little areas like that, but for what was tradable for me, for what I was trying to go for, just as, hey, I'm here, what can I learn? I think I took away a lot from it today on SBFM that was offered. So that was SBFM, IMPP. Last one, this was just a little reference for my paper short that I still had a few shares left of for when I got short around this range, whatever that was yesterday. Playing for that downside, just adjusting to the market as it was screaming what its sentiment wanted to be. And I'm sure, like we saw on Steven Ducks, that he's going to have a great video talking about how he saw that turn so perfectly and made 4 million buckarooskies off of that. Absolutely insane. But sure enough, I cover pretty much at the exact top of this little regional chart here. And That is not what I want it to be whatsoever, trying to avoid that. And I think that bled into the not statement, that how your brain just doesn't factor in, it doesn't understand no, that it's like, okay, don't pick the top, don't cover the top. And sure enough, that's pretty much exactly what I did. And actually looking at the chat here later too, it looks like Roy was starting to short in this thing at this specific time frame too, which is not what I want to be doing. And the chart, of course, had a little pullback to VWAP and then eventually did break that high to form new high days. But even at that, there's a far better play and more of a confirmation that the trade is over at that time frame versus this one, where it still could have very much so pulled back and started to break this little 475 range here, or break to red on the intraday itself. So yeah, learning lessons on that paper short. That's why I do, and that's what I want to be in them, versus me not really being able to actually short right now with my margin account situation, but still getting in the reps and going through the emotions of, okay, how is this thing trading, or where would I be sitting on? So yeah, still a beautiful, insane profit on this trade in total, but yeah, still plenty of work left to be done for just understanding how the charts want to be working. And I don't think it's an entirely terrible exit of what I was keeping in the back of my mind of this was, even though there really wasn't any specific leader for this oil and gas sector, IMPP was an incredible, one of the top few. And so respecting that, of especially for whatever the float of this one is, again, pretty low float there, incredibly low market cap as well on this one. But of respecting, okay, these things can be incredibly against you incredibly quickly, and respecting that fact of how many times I've seen that before in the 2020 market, and just of any of the crazy memers and just low floater stocks that as a short, you have to respect that 100%, because they can smack you in the face if you're not careful enough that way. And then on the flip side of that, I can say, well, I just had like less than half of my initial position size left. I should have been willing. It's a paper trade also to begin with. I should have been just very curious about it and not so anxious. It's one of my rules of choose curiosity over anxiety. Okay, we're getting I thought I was being it as it was just continuing to break tops here, break this initial high here, break to that new high here off of this candle, break that high again, then break another high off of that candle within that same minute. I thought I was giving it a lot of leeway, but surely it just was not enough. Yeah. Learning lessons all around. That's why we're here. We're still going. We're chugging. And these types of learning experiences aren't for today. They are for when I have the actual margin and position sizes to be taking these kinds of trades. So keeping that in perspective, all in the same as well. Nothing really catching my eye insanely. Nothing tickling my fancy so much for scanners right now as I'm looking at just after the close here. But we're going to do some more, just based off of preliminary scans, but of course doing more scans later tonight and putting more data research in on still trying to figure out how to do the automated trades through my NinjaTrader. Something's bugging out there, stupidity on that. But I think that's definitely going to be an awesome factor going forward as well, of automating some of those strategies and getting a lot of, I don't want to call it just side cash coming in, but just of exploring myself different avenues that way as well, expanding my horizons in the future sectors. So excited about that. And I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.